Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone, I hope that you're having a fantastic day and a fantastic Friday, because it is exactly that. Really looking forward to today's show, because today is completely dedicated to just general news. Popzara, of course, will be joining us. Nathan Evans, managing editor of Popzara magazine, will be here, and just a lot of different topics. The latest, the latest and greatest. Because Computer America, we've been out for the previous week we were out pretty much the entire week, and then we came back and we had guests and correspondents and people to talk to, which is great, but it means that a lot of news stories have unfortunately kind of fallen by the wayside. So joining us today is, as I said before, Nathan Evans. So before we get to him, computeramerica.com, that's where you'll find everything, including computer and technology news, any articles that we do, links to our guests, show notes after the show, everything like that right there. You'll also find the live video stream, which you can also find at twitch.tv/computeramerica, and find us wherever podcasts are heard for that as well. Okay, morning announcements done. Why don't we go ahead, jump right into it. And again, as I said before, joining us is none other than Nathan Evans. He's a longtime contributor to the show, helped us with all of our CES coverage, which, again, we greatly appreciate. And in the meantime, hey, it's just a fun guy to talk to. Nathan, how you doing?
Ben, welcome back. Or should I say, it's great to be back here.
Yeah, for sure. And so a lot has happened, I guess, since you were on the show. I want to say it was the previous Monday, like not this Monday, but the Monday, because this Monday we were off for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. But the previous Monday we were kind of off, but you and I actually, you, me, and Herman Exum over at Popzara recorded a segment kind of recapping CES 2019, and that was a lot of fun. So you just wanted, and you actually released a version of that over at Popzara as well.
A chopped and screwed version of that, where we remixed the episode for all you latecomers. But no, as Martin Luther King Jr. himself said, it's not a day off, Ben. It's a day on. We're never off. Can't stop, won't stop.
Did you say I am so behind on my quotes? But I will take your word for it, as I will be doing.
Trust me. If you're 60 years behind, there's no catching up.
That's fair. But I'm going to do that a lot today. I'm just going to take your word for it on a couple of these stories. But you do actually have a number of stories. But before we do, why don't we go ahead and talk about your background in Popzara, what that is, and what it is you guys try to do there.
Sure. Well, single, looking to mingle. My measurements are. No, if we're talking about Popzara, which, if ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, only Ben and Craig Crossman consider it a magazine, and I never correct them, because I love knowing that somebody thinks that a website is a magazine, and so I will never correct you. Never correct you.
It's a digital. It's a digital publication, so it's a magazine as far as I'm concerned.
It's funny. People still call albums, and they haven't been albums in 30 years. So we still call them records, breaking records, but. We love that old-timey speak, because it's somehow more appropriate, because no one ever says it's breaking digital binary transmissions. It's just too cumbersome. So you're a radio show and I'm a magazine. Are we good with that?
Yeah, no, that's fair.
We're good with that. So, no, Popzara, it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little pop culture, a little bit of movies, a little bit of games, a little bit of books, literature, a little bit of technology. I think a lot of technology, especially when it comes to the Crossmans. And increasingly almost devoid of politics. I'm very happy about that. Thank you. And, and we have a very cute, adorable green dinosaur, which is deceptively disarming if you think that you can't take us seriously, because you totally can. So...
Right. Yeah. No. And of course, your mascot does make a number of appearances, including, you give, I especially like your game reviews and your movie reviews, whether, people should see it, skip it, or, just any of the other things. You have, and a number of, the people who contribute to Popzara have been on the show as well. Corey Gallagher, of course, our Gamer Tuesday correspondent. You've really put together a really nice team, and it's not even like I don't want to say that they're fresh, but they're eager to do journalism, which is definitely great to see.
Well, fresh is a nice way of saying rank amateurs. But the fact of the matter is if you're listening, if you run a website, if you run a radio show, whatever. On one hand, if you run CNN or MSNBC or Fox or whatever, you have your pick of the litter. You can pick anybody you want. You can call Bob Woodward. You can call up Don Lemon. You can call anybody. But if you run a website like mine, or if you run a radio program like Computer America, I think a portion of what you do should be to sort of give people opportunity, a chance to express themselves. Hire someone or get someone who has no experience. Give them some experience. Give it back a little bit. They'll appreciate it. So, and if there's one thing that journalism needs right now, it's no more professionals, because the professionals have failed. We need amateurs. We need something new, because what we had been ain't working. It's not working anymore, so it needs to change.
All right. Well, hey, why don't we go ahead and kick off that change and get into a number of these topics here. And this first one, let's see. So whenever Corey Gallagher comes on and it's Gamer Tuesday, and we always find one topic to just go on and on about. That one topic is Star Citizen, and that game, and just
he's obsessed.
Yeah, but it's a very interesting story, and it's just constant letdown and constantly interesting, and the fervent fans just kind of make it for me. But if it's not Gamer Tuesday, then there's another topic. And that's MoviePass. MoviePass has been that one company that I watch and I go, wow, they're so great that I can't wait to watch them crash and burn. It's been such a slow train wreck that I can't stop watching for years on end. You have an article here, and that MoviePass, which we thought was dead because it's been a couple months since we talked about them, you managed to find something.
Well, full disclaimer, I am a customer of MoviePass, or should I say I've gifted MoviePass as an experiment to try it out. So I can say firsthand, my poor editors who've experienced MoviePass's implosion from the cheap seats. I will say this, though. I'm on board with the MoviePass. I'm on board with anything that's a game changer. And I know people give MoviePass a lot of poo-poo, and a lot of it deserved. But I want to segue real quick, because I don't really want to talk about them, but if you follow movies at all, then you know the Academy Award nominations were just announced this week. And if you follow Academy Awards, which you probably shouldn't because they're mostly a waste, you'll see that Netflix had a whole bunch of movies nominated, including a record-breaking number for their movie Roma. And likewise, Netflix has peed off a lot of people, and this has peed off a lot of the same people that MoviePass has peed off. You remember how Uber and Lyft basically deconstructed the taxi system, and they've had nothing but grief, especially from large cities like New York and Los Angeles. And
whenever there's a large institution that is really banking on things remaining the same, not disrupting anything, such as the taxi union or what have you, there's going to be a lot of hoopla when things start to change.
Yeah, things are changing, and the fact is, Netflix is as game changing, if not more so, than cable was, if not HBO. And the same way, VHS was battled by the television stations and movie companies. Eventually, I believe, going to the Supreme Court, and I believe it was Mr. Rogers, of all people, who stood up for VHS tapes.
Yeah.
And of all things, see, just when you think the guy couldn't get any cooler, but. But the fact is that what MoviePass does, and to its credit, AMC offers a very similar service called AMC Stubs. And what it does, it allows people to be more flexible with movies and to see more movies. But the fact is that a movie like Roma, a movie like Bird Box, a movie like Bright, all these online movies would have never made any money in the theater. They would have never, and if you ever watch Netflix movies or Hulu movies or Amazon Prime movies, there's a lot of new, interesting stuff that's happening there, and these movies would have, never got any funding, they would have never been in a theater, and if they would have been in a theater, they would have bombed, and people would have said, look how much money they've lost.
Yeah,
right?
So one of those movies, I can't remember the exact name of it, but it marketed itself as kind of like a Cloverfield sequel or whatever. It was on Netflix. And
Cloverfield. It was a Cloverfield movie.
Yeah, but at the same time, I was watching it, and I remember watching it thinking, and it had Simon Pegg, and it had who I just love as an actor, but
I'm a big fan.
but like I was watching the movie, and I was like, you could tell that they did something very strange with the movie, where they threw in everything that was happening back on Earth that kind of filled in 40 minutes of the movie for no reason. They threw in Cloverfield references where honestly you could take every one of them out and it was a standalone film. And what I didn't know about until afterwards, because this was released on Netflix, people might remember that the first time really anyone ever heard of it, there was a Super Bowl ad saying,
they said it's on now. Now it's available. Boom.
Yeah, it's on right now. And it made a big splash, and people
like a Beyonce album. They just dropped it.
Yeah, and people really flocked to it. Netflix doesn't release numbers, but I'm sure a lot of people watched it. But at the same time, I remember, I didn't find out till later, it was its own movie. It was its own sci-fi movie. The producer or something dropped out. The funding fell through. Whoever created
Netflix saved it.
Netflix saved it, and they threw on the Cloverfield bit just to give it another name. But they saved actually a really good movie by doing what Netflix I think is really good at, and that's just taking kind of passable crap and turning it into something that's like, for the price that I'm paying for Netflix, that was completely worth my money.
Well, and going back to MoviePass, though, MoviePass is attempting to fix something I don't know that can be fixed. The idea is that people are going to get in their car and drive and go see the movie. Now, I'll admit to you, to me, I enjoy going to a movie and sitting and being spoiled by IMAX and surround sound and everything. And even a bad movie can be great. And I'll be honest with you, Ben, I would love to go see old classic movies like The Godfather or, Apocalypse Now or Citizen Kane on a big screen. Because there's something to be said about the experience.
Isn't there some kind of movie theater? I think it's like in Texas that serves like beer and it's like a full restaurant.
The Draft House, I think. The Draft House?
Yeah, something like the Draft House where they show old movies and they have like a schedule. Yeah.
And they used to do this a lot before the advent of home video and everything, because that's the only way you saw it. It had to be re-released. But, and every once in a while we do see this, and these movies do well. You see The Wizard of Oz come back a couple of years, Terminator 2, I think Schindler's List was just put back in. Mm-hmm. And there's something to be said about keeping the old stuff alive, and I like that. But what MoviePass came across is that it disrupted the model that exists, but the model itself is parasitic. It doesn't work anymore. It works if you're Marvel. It works if you're a comic book movie, but it don't work if you're an independent movie. It doesn't work if you have a movie with no budget. And Steven Spielberg talked about this a while ago. He said movies are basically going to become very, very cheap and very, very expensive. And you're not going to get that mix anymore because there's just no money in it. And add to the factor that Chinese investment dictate content and dictate the way the content is distributed, then you're basically leaving no other chance but alternative venues. And so, again, I don't hate MoviePass the way it goes. I'm getting ahead of myself, but here's the thing. It's like when you read the tech blogs and you see story after story after story after story after story about how bad Uber is. Oh, someone got robbed, someone got raped, someone got stolen. Uber. Most of those stories are from websites that have partnerships with the parent company of Lyft. It's not journalism, it's propaganda. Same with MoviePass. Variety, Deadline, all this, they would just heap on the scorn. MoviePass had a lot of subscribers, a lot. But companies would pull out. Why? Because movie theater chains are owned by a handful of people. And so it doesn't have a chance. And by the way, going back to the Netflix reference, why do you think Netflix is making their own movies now? Why are they making their own shows? Because they don't want to be held responsible for paying licensing fees anymore. If they make the product, they can do whatever they want with it.
It makes sense because when you're charged something, it was like $600 million to keep Friends on Netflix.
It's insane.
Yeah, you can't afford to keep licensing, Disney or Fox or same company.
Well, and then what's going to happen though is that Disney's going to do what they're doing. They're going to build their own app to compete. Yeah. CBS builds their own app to compete. These companies all build their own app to compete because they all want to be the next Netflix.
It's almost like they all had their own cable channel or something.
Well, it's offered as a cable channel with some providers, but there's another story we sent. Maybe we can segue into that about Hulu is lowering their prices, and Hulu has always been this way.
Well, actually, and before we really skip over to Hulu, we should kind of say that the point of this article that we're going to throw into the show notes, they're planning to relaunch Unlimited Movie Plan. For those people who weren't following, let's see, MoviePass had been acquired by like a number of different investment firms.
Yeah. Well, can we be fair? How MoviePass makes its money? It doesn't make any money selling tickets.
Right.
It makes its money because it farms your information.
It loses. I think it was losing something like $2-3 for every movie you actually did go see, or even more. Like if you saw one movie, it lost like $2.
Yeah, it's losing money. It's losing money to gain money. Eventually, it would get a subscriber base that they could sell. And by the way, that's Silicon Valley for you. That's Google.
Yeah.
That's pretty much every service.
Capital.
That's Twitter, Facebook, everything. It's what they do.
Yeah.
And
So and again, just real quick, and that's definitely just venture capital. But again, it looks like they're looking to launch a new unlimited plan, $10 per month, and hey,
good luck with that.
Yeah, maybe they can do it, maybe they can't. But MoviePass, what a way to go! So with that being,
I will say one more thing though. One more thing I should say about MoviePass.
Sure.
MoviePass was also investing in movies, and that's the other thing. Some of that money went to invest in the creation and the production of films. And there's one film in particular, I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it came out last year.
Yeah,
so they were trying to get into the ground level of it, but it just wasn't enough.
And honestly, that was a move that they were really throwing everything at the wall and trying to stick, because if people would go see MoviePass's movie and they could cut out, let's say, they didn't have to pay royalties, or they collected royalties on their own movie, then they would actually make a little bit of money on their own movie. But that didn't work. Yeah. So, okay.
I'm trying to find the name. I think it's a Bruce Willis movie. But honestly, with all due respect, Bruce Willis just turns out unrelenting crap these days, so it's kind of hard to know.
Yeah. So, hey, speaking of that, I shouldn't say that. Hulu, that's not fair to you. You Hulu. But Hulu is making its basic plan cheaper as Netflix gets pricier, which is actually pretty interesting because, we talked about Netflix already, so I guess we can say Netflix has been getting pricier. If you've been a Netflix subscriber for the past 2-3 years, they've upped the base subscription and the higher, or they might have kept the base subscription the same, but the higher tiers, HD, 1080p, 4K, whatever, whatever it is that you pay for, they've increased that by like $2-3, every year. So
exactly, they're someone's got to pay for these movies. Someone's got to pay for Friends, but Hulu's always been kind of the disruptor here. They've always went up and down with their price. They actually had a really good Black Friday price where you can get an entire year of Hulu for like $13, and it's ad supported. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a subscriber. I like Hulu, but I pay to get the ads off because I don't want to see ads. And there's so many of them. But if they're going to give you like the service for like $4 a month, $5 a month now, they also had something that was also pretty cool. They also had the Hulu plan with Spotify, where you can get both of them for like $10.
I remember that, yeah.
And that's pretty cool. So they can play with that because Hulu's owned by movie companies. They're actually owned by traditional Hollywood, and they have no problem advertising to you, like Netflix doesn't. They have no problem sharing your information, which Netflix doesn't. They have no problem. But do you know what else Hulu hasn't done that Netflix has? They haven't really produced any hits. Like, their biggest hit was this one show called Handmaid's Tale, and I'll be honest with you, I have seen zero evidence that anybody's ever watched that show. I mean, they play cosplay with it, and they dress up and protest, but I don't know if anybody actually watches it. I've never met anybody who's actually watched it.
I definitely haven't, and I gotta say that Hulu is like the place that whenever something leaves Netflix and you say, oh, this is it, I'm finally going to stop subscribing to Netflix because they lost Futurama. They lost Parks and Rec. They lost The Office, or not The Office yet, but they lost X, Y, like whatever goes off of Netflix. Hulu is the catch bin, and people say, finally, this is, I'm going to Hulu because they have Futurama, and at the same time, I don't see a lot of people dropping Netflix for that, but they'll make a big stink about it.
Yeah, in fact, Netflix's numbers keep going up, and Hulu, like I said, bless them, but their original programming tends to be pretty middling to mediocre. It's not anywhere. It's not even close to what Netflix is doing, and which I don't want to get into Amazon. Amazon has no plan. They have no strategy. Their strategy is put it on the service, let people find it. It's not user friendly. It's not curated at all. Look, Netflix is an amazing piece of software. It is light years better than anything else. Nothing's close. Like Netflix is like Windows 10 and Mac OS rolled into one. Hulu is at best like Ubuntu from like 5 years ago. Like it's functional, but it's not that good. Like Netflix is so good that they have interactive TV, and you can interact with the Black Mirror show. There's nothing like that anywhere else. Nothing.
Bandersnatch. Yes.
Yeah, they're investing in brand new technologies. The fact that you can watch Netflix on your phone, that you can download shows, that you can watch on your TV, your game consoles, everything, interact with it, do this, do that. It's pretty amazing. I mean, if they want to charge an extra $2, and you know what's funny? Every time you see Netflix raise their price, there's always those sad people that write articles. I'm dumping Netflix. You know what? They don't need you.
And I think there's a pretty it's almost like societal level where Netflix has so much goodwill, and what they're doing, you're right, they're so much better than the competition, that I can kind of do a gut check, and without checking any articles, because there's always going to be, it's something that we've talked about before, negativity spreads so much faster than positivity.
Yeah, it's the Apple effect. It's the Apple effect. Like, oh no, Apple. You see this every time with Apple, and I'm not the biggest fan of Apple anymore, but oh my God, there's a notch in the phone. Sales are going to go down. Oh no, they're predicting. Yeah, and then the greatest sales they've ever had.
Yeah, and then there's not. But like I said, like I can kind of do a gut check, and it changes year to year, but I can kind of say Netflix is currently costing me $14, and I have to look at myself and go, I'll pay $14 a month.
While I'm talking to you right now, I just got an email from Netflix while we're talking. I'm not joking. This is
they're listening.
Yeah, no, I wish they were. Maybe they are. They're inviting my editors to a theatrical screening of an upcoming Netflix movie.
A theatrical, but as in, and of course I'm not, I don't know if it's under embargo or anything like that.
You can ask.
All right, but in theaters, like obviously you mentioned that the awards are coming up. Netflix has a lot of shows on the docket or whatever. Mm-hmm. Are they inviting people to a physical location, or are they saying, "Hey, enter this code"?
Here's what they do. In order for a movie to be nominated for an Academy Award, it has to be available theatrically for 2 weeks, either in New York or Los Angeles. And so there's lots of the screenings, but they actually do screenings for actual critics. This is their goodwill gesture. You see. Mm-hmm. A lot of the movies that are screened in screenings in Los Angeles are never going to win any awards, but the journalists like it, you see? Now, I'll be honest with you, Netflix gives us screenings on our browsers. We can watch it at home, or you can go to a theater. But you know what? You tell an editor not to go to a screening, they're going to bite your head off. They want to be pampered. They want to go to the red carpet. They want to be part of that. It's part of the glitz and glamour. Yeah. And again, this is something else that I believe Amazon does similar, but Netflix really does roll out the red carpet. They are making efforts to try. Now, I'll be honest with you, most of their movies are terrible.
Yeah.
Some of them are mediocre. But they're trying. Unlike MoviePass. MoviePass, I think, is mostly a scam. I think it's to pay off somebody's college loans. But these new technologies are not going anywhere. Change is coming.
I think that MoviePass is probably some venture capitalist, like the nth degree of what's wrong with investment in tech. Not gonna get back into MoviePass, but I will say very cool for Netflix. I've been invited not to anything for Netflix. I think we had one from Universal Studios or something like that. And yeah, they did kind of the same thing where like they gave me like a code and they give me like a password, and I got to watch it at home, but they had like a watermark, and like they had like software running in the background that if I took like a screenshot or had a recording software, they would, I don't know, arrest me on the spot or something.
Down.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's always cool. Interesting that Netflix has to kind of play the game. You mentioned all the crazy hoops you have to jump through just to get nominated, but Netflix is playing the game, and not only are they playing it, they're succeeding overtly at the game.
Can I say one thing though? Final thought on this.
Sure.
One of the things I love at what Netflix is doing and enjoy it while it lasts is they don't really reveal the numbers. They once in a while they'll tease like accounts or they'll tease, but they don't really talk about the numbers.
Yeah, they'll tease like, let's say, Bandersnatch had X amount of people, percentage of this people did that, or this was the most watched TV series up to date, but they don't do any hard numbers, right?
Well, and here's something that I've known for a long time, and one of the reasons why Popzara doesn't do numerical reviews is because when you talk about the ratings for something, all you talk about is if they're either really, really good or really, really bad. And the conversation quickly veers from the quality of the show to how popular it is. Oh, this show got 30 million. This show got 5. This show did this. This movie made 100 million. This movie made 2 million. This movie... No one's talking about the movie. But with the Netflix stuff, they're talking about Bird Box. They're talking about Stranger Things. They're talking about the shows. And people are talking and engaging with Netflix programs in a way that I have not seen in my lifetime, to the degree where it's more artistic than it is commercial. Same with Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, you'll hear like, oh, it's the most bootleg show. But they'll always say, oh, it's got 8 million viewers. And then they'll say, oh, that's not half what Big Bang Theory gets. They're two different shows. One has nudity and the other one has nerds.
Right.
So which one do you think is going to get more? But with Netflix, it's just, oh, how many... Oh, it's so scary. The show's so scary. This is nostalgia. We got toys. It's a lot more fun when you're not part of the rabble-rousing, when you're just enjoying the program for what it is. And it's a lot more engaging to me. And that's why I applaud them. I love it. I love the fact they're pissing off the right people. Yeah. Certain people need to be pissed off because they've injected so much negativity into the conversation.
I kind of hate to say it, but the thing that made people kind of like Netflix is what makes that possible. And it's also the thing that will hold back Hulu, and it's the lack of advertisers. The only people who care about hard numbers, or who should care about hard numbers, are people who are paying to put products in the right place or ads in front of people, and Netflix does not advertise in that way. I'm not saying that they don't do like product placement in their shows or something like that, but they they don't have like 30-second ads or trailers or things like that, so they don't have to give large numbers. And I think it's a consequence of what you were saying. They get to kind of be above the fray that others have to play.
I love it. I love it. It's like your best friend is Jeff Bezos. Be like, where do you want to go? I don't know. You want to go to the movies? No. How about Hawaii? What? It's like,
how about space?
The possibilities are so much better when you have so much money.
There you go. So, okay, we are going to swap from that. Great streaming, all that good stuff. We should probably mention a number. Hulu is looking to drop its prices. I don't know how we didn't get to the first paragraph of this article. In February, so next month, Hulu will drop the price of its ad-supported on-demand streaming service from $7.99 to $5.99. So dropping from $8 to $6 to $2. But
hidden in that golden nugget is that they're also raising the prices of their cable subscription. So
right.
Woo. So Hulu, we see what you did. You hit the bad news within good news.
Right, there you go. So, okay, so there's that. Let's go ahead, swap over, and we have about a minute left, so we're probably just going to, kind of talk about what is going to happen. But, I take that back. Because we just talked about all the different streaming apps, let's talk about TiVo, because I think we can segue pretty nicely into how TiVo and kind of like so many companies out there.
I don't think TiVo is that different than MoviePass at this point. I think the writing's on the wall.
Well, and like TiVo was in such a dominant market position that I think recorded television and TiVo were synonymous, 10, 15 years ago. And unfortunately, they kind of let that slip, or I don't know if they let that slip or if others came into the market and did it better. But TiVo being a DVR.
We can talk about this after the thing. There's actually a really cool story within this story that no one's talking about.
Sure. All right. Yeah, and we love to be in the no ones. So with that being said, everyone, Popzara, Nathan Evans, and when we come back, we will be continuing on with these stories. And let's see. And by the way, some of the other stories that we're going to cover include Red Dead Redemption 2, best-selling game of 2018. Surprising with all
Spoilers, Ben.
Hey, it's true, but we're going to talk numbers and we're going to talk why. Also, Apple Macintosh celebrates a birthday here in just a little bit, as well as the great Google Hangouts. Oh no, Shutdown. We actually use Google Hangouts on the show quite often. That's
Hey, I called it 3 years ago. That thing is done.
You can call every Google project closed, and
true.
You'll be right eventually. But hey, everyone.
That fruit is low hanging.
Absolutely. Everyone, we'll be right back. Music means we'll take a break. Everyone, stay tuned.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And if you have missed any part of today's show, feel free to check out wherever podcasts are heard. Recently at computeramerica.com, we revamped our streaming page kind of deal there and put in a lot of players, try to make that so if you wanted to find the show in one convenient place, hey, our website should be the first place you check out, and the second place you check out is wherever podcasts are, and punch in Computer America. There you go. We should pop right up. So I think with that being said, we continue on. Nathan Evans, Popzara Magazine, and why don't we go ahead and just kind of continue on here where we were about to jump into, again, TiVo, and you actually sent a link. I'll check that out. But yeah, TiVo. Nathan, please.
Okay, well, for those who don't know, the reason I liken TiVo to MoviePass is that I don't think the technology is viable anymore. We talked about Netflix. We talked about this. I can start watching a Netflix show on my phone, and then I can go watch it on my Switch, that I can go watch it on my computer, that I can go watch it in the bathroom, and it pauses, it saves space, it keeps track of everything. There's no need for a box. But I want to go back to when I knew that TiVo was dead. I mean, first of all, I had to be reminded that TiVo was alive. And so, but I'll go back to that for a second. But here's what I knew it was dead. So do you remember there was this really cool deal last year with DirecTV, where DirecTV was basically giving away Apple TVs, the 4K TVs?
Yeah.
It was DirecTV Now. Yeah. And if you paid 3 months in advance, so it was like $60 or whatever, it was really cheap, then they would, $70, they would give you the Apple 4K TV, no problem. Even if you canceled, it was yours. And that was the trick. That was the Trojan horse, because the Apple TV was the box. That was going to be your new box. Everything was going to be run through apps. And the 4K Apple TV is actually a pretty nice... It's not only just a nice streaming box, it's the best streaming box. And it's future-proof. It's actually pretty powerful. Huh. And this is the problem, because TiVo dates back to the time when you couldn't buy a cable box. You had to rent one from the cable companies back in the early 2000s. And it was, you and I are too young, but the old people, they know that it reminds them of the phone company. When you couldn't own your own phone, you had to rent it from AT&T or whatever. And the deregulation of the phone industry allowed just an explosion of cordless devices and everything, and it revolutionized the phone industry. And a couple of years ago, I was going to say probably in 2012, 2010 maybe, there were plans under the Obama administration to deregulate cable companies to basically allow third-party cable boxes.
I remember that, yeah.
And actually, you have a device in your house that was built for that, the Xbox One. Yep. The Xbox One, in fact, when the Xbox One was introduced, it wasn't even introduced as a game console. It was introduced as a TV box. Yeah. And if you look in the back, it says in and out.
Hub. Yeah.
Yeah, it was going to be a TV hub. It was going to be the central plan. But to be honest with you, Ben, it goes back even further. It goes back to the Xbox 360 with Uverse, where Microsoft and AT&T would try to create this coupled bundle that would compete with cable companies. You would use a game console as the conduit. And that's cool. It's a good idea. But as we both know, that never happened. And it never materialized, and the plans for the Xbox fell through. But again, because of apps. I mean, you and I were talking before the show that your entire production is cloud-based, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's why TiVo's irrelevant. Although I will say one thing about TiVo, though. They're going to try, and I think I think if we're being generous, the technical aspects of the new TiVo boxes and everything are still way below suboptimal. Yeah. Like 720p, 30. It's just not good. But here's what happened a long time ago. TiVo was at the forefront of bootlegging, because people would DVR shows and people would rip the show off their hard drive and they'd upload it to the internet. So TiVo's time has come and gone, and I don't. It's just one of those things. I'm gonna give you an analogy, and I apologize if this is a little upsetting, but TiVo's kind of like one of those old celebrities that when they die, and there's a news story that they died, you're kind of surprised they were still alive.
Yeah, that.
You know what I mean? Like, TiVo's alive. I get it, but TiVo. I always thought that TiVo should have segued the same way Western Union did. Do you remember Western Union?
Yeah. They made their living on money transfers and money orders.
Now.
And
now.
Yeah,
but
now.
back in the 20s and 30s, they were a telegraph company.
Yeah, telegraph. Yeah.
Yeah, and so can you imagine if they would have said, you know what? Imagine them folding their arms and being resolute and saying, telegraph's not going anywhere. It's here to stay. Everyone wants a telegraph. Stop. We're still alive. Stop. No, they went with the times. They changed, and now they're dominant. They dominate the money transfer thing. I still think they're more successful than PayPal. So that's what TiVo should have done. TiVo was there. They were on the forefront. They had all the innovation, and they screwed it up. And so, just like MoviePass, let's watch and see. So
TiVo, your big mistake, and we just checked our calendar, and TiVo hasn't been on the show since about 2008. TiVo, your big problem was that it's been a decade since you've been on the show here.
11 years now.
Yeah, reach out and come on the show.
I was going to say, we have nothing against TiVo, but the technology is old.
We have nothing against TiVo. We have everything and I'm sure you're right there with us when it comes to technology. Technology is very agnostic. Like there was a time when it was Xbox versus PlayStation, Mac versus PC. People had their camps and they were set up in it. And there might be a little bit, Apple, Android kind of feuding going on. But as far as the tech world, it's really come along in that if you have a good product at a good price and it's good hardware, people will love you. People will take you back, accepting. And I think in TiVo's case, even though the name may seem old, we have seen other institutions, kind of come back with an old name. It's just they're not going to do it with a 720p 30 FPS. It's just
to be fair, to be fair, they are going the app route. But again, I just don't think. I mean, they want this app to be available on things like Roku. I mean, you and I have discussed this for many years about bringing even like Computer America to Roku, and there was a story just this week that Roku was the last tech company to finally ban Alex Jones' InfoWars. So the fact of the matter is that apps are not cable stations. You're still at the whim of the provider.
Yeah.
And so again, I'll give TiVo credit for going the app route, but I still want to know, what do they provide that is in any way better or comparable or less expensive than the competition? And I just can't think of it. I can't think of any itch they scratch.
So I have not looked into it, and this would be where I would have to do some research and things like that. But TiVo, I would have to see who actually owns them, because we see this from time to time. One of the most notable instances would be Nokia, where Nokia was Nokia, and then Microsoft bought Nokia when they were doing Windows phones. Windows phones obviously were a huge success, but too much success for Microsoft to handle, so they had to, shear it off, the company. And its whole patent portfolio and its whole marketing thing, and that was sarcasm, by the way. Windows phones are, yeah. But just be very clear about that. And Nokia was purchased by another, I think they were Swedish or Norwegian company, and they started to produce things under the Nokia name brand. And maybe that's what happened. Let's see. So on September 8th, 2016, the acquisition by Rovi Corporation, who now owns TiVo. So 2016, maybe when you saw a resurgence of, their new bent box looking thing, which is just goofy. But Rovi bought TiVo, and they're still trying to, mess with the tires.
You know what it's like? It's like when I hear people like, "Oh, you should get Linux, right? Linux is so good, it's free." Oh, but does it have Office? No, it has OpenOffice. Does it have Photoshop? No, it has GIMP. No, it has worse versions of all the stuff that I want.
Why do you pick on Linux the day after the Linux show just happened?
I promise you that is just coincidence. But look, if you like Linux, that's good. But I think even Linux admits it lost the desktop. Okay, I think we all know this. But what I'm saying is, do you remember that argument that you should get Linux? It's just like Windows. But it's not. It's like none of the software is the software you want, and that's what the TiVo thing is. It's like people just don't like Office; they need Office. Office is integrated into certain systems, and you can't use OpenOffice or LibreOffice. Same with Photoshop. First of all, if you think GIMP is as good as Photoshop, then then I don't want to hire you. So I don't want your skills.
Like the conversation that we have on the Linux show, for anyone out there who wasn't listening to yesterday's show, which we highly recommend, it's not that the Linux community agrees that the desktop war is lost. It's just that there's a transition happening where like the core ideals of open software and the idea that anyone can take something and tinker with it, that idea of, I guess, that was really popular during the 80s and 90s and, early 2000s, that, innovation happens when everything is shared. That's lost on this generation that has grown up with a closed ecosystem of your Apples and your YouTubes and whatever. And there's just no desire to really bring what Linux offers to a new generation. And it's something that definitely they're worried about, for sure.
Let me put it this way. Linux is great in servers where you don't see it and you don't really interact with it. Linux is good as a foundation, right? Linux is not good on my screen and with terminal screens. It's not cool. It's not good. If I have to click more than twice, if I have to more than double click, I don't want it. I just want a single click if I can.
It's something to do with the fact that anyone can create their own version of Linux, and it's the fact that Windows has, or I should say Microsoft has, thousands of engineers working on usability of Microsoft, and anyone on Linux can decide, this isn't as usable. If Nathan wanted to go out tomorrow and say, this version of Linux is not as usable as I would like it, he can go out and create his own fork of the software, make it as usable as he likes, but then he's just, he's kind of one of dozens or hundreds.
Let me tell you why Linux failed, and I'll give it to you in a nutshell, very, very short to the point. Because people like civilization. People don't like pooping in the woods, okay? People like flush toilets. People don't want a box with a hole and say this is just as good as a toilet. It's not. It's a box with a hole in it.
There's a lot to like with Linux.
No. What I'm saying is, Windows is civilization. Windows, you don't have to worry about the software. You don't, generally speaking, you don't have to worry about compatibility. You don't have to worry about a lot of stuff. It's available. When you see it, like, oh my God, thank God, a folder with a little X to close it, and also acceptable to some lesser degree is Mac OS. It's acceptable, but Linux is like going to like Bangladesh and not having any money. It's like you can do anything you want if you have the money, but the resources aren't there. Whereas being poor, if you're poor in America, you can still go into libraries. In Bangladesh, if you're poor,
I think something to kind of point out here about Linux is, of course, the idea that a lot of big companies kind of run their own distributions of Linux. So, like, you're probably never going to run Red Hat, but if you're IBM who just purchased Red Hat, guess what? Everyone's going to be running Red Hat here soon.
That's the other thing. A lot of those builds were bought by corporations.
Oh, for sure. And of course you have things like Mint, which are actually pretty analogous to, but they are analogous. They are not synonymous to Windows. But hey, not here to bash on Linux. We're here to talk about other things.
I mean, Linux is I just don't think it's a desktop OS for the average person. That's it.
I think that why it's so cool and why so many people were so passionate about Linux, before I get all the hate mail, why they're so passionate is not as important to today's computer user. And, again, back to the open source and customization.
Hey,
it's just not important.
Last thing. To be fair with you, people are abandoning the PC. They're going on their phones and tablets. So it is what it is.
And hey, and if you ask a Linux user, Android is Linux, so Linux won. But I digress. We move on. You sent over some MPD numbers. I'm hoping that has something to do with Red Dead so that we can tie these two stories together.
Yes. So
let's switch to games.
Can I self-promote a little bit?
Please do.
We just, your favorite games editor and mine, Corey, and one of my new editors, James McKeever. No, we did a best games of. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. No, Corey and I, every month, we talk about NPD, and we did our NPD analysis this week. Numbers were released. It was for December 2018, which also included some nuggets. And some of those nuggets, if you check out the link, we now know that not only the top-selling games of December 2018, we know the top-selling video games of 2018. And if you see the list, we can talk about it if you want, or I can give you the brief synopsis.
Yeah, for everyone out there watching the video portion, we're looking at the two lists at the bottom of the article. Obviously, this is the podcast right there, which, let's see, about 29 minutes if people want to go check that out. The article is rather wordy, so we're going to kind of skip over those.
Hey!
Give us the nuggets. Give us the nuggets.
Okay, the nuggets are, in the month of December, Nintendo had a huge, gigantic blockbuster hit with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. No big surprise. But the more interesting stuff has to do with the best-selling games. And if I can just give you executive summary, the top 10 best-selling games, number 10 was Assassin's Creed Odyssey, a game that has divided people. Personally, I loved half of it, and I didn't like the other half, but I did beat it. Corey's favorite game of the year, Monster Hunter World. He loved that game. It was a huge, huge blockbuster hit for Capcom. Number 8 was God of War 2018. Many, many people thought this was the game of the year, including some of my editors. I can't disagree with them, and I can't agree with them. We all have our preferences, but as a big smash game for PlayStation, it helped sell PlayStation 4 Pros unlike anything ever did. So it was a big hit. Number 7, Far Cry 5. Not as good as 4, but very popular, and there's a DLC coming out. If you like Far Cry, it's Far Cry. Not more and not less. Number 6, I believe this was Sony's biggest game of the year, and it was Marvel's Spider-Man. By the way, Spider-Man, this was an excellent year for Spider-Man fans.
Yeah.
You had a very good video game. You had a very, very decent and very funny Venom movie. And you also had what many people thought was one of the best movies of the year with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which, again, this week was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Animated Picture.
I just got to say, I don't use that phrase enough, and I might have to after hearing you say it. Very decent. I like the way you describe Venom, but please.
Oh, very decent. Well, that's a backhanded compliment. It's not a great movie, but it's very decent, and it's very funny.
Right.
But you know Tom Hardy plays both Eddie Brock and Venom. And I got to tell you,
Really?
that guy can do voices. That guy is an amazing mimic. He's the guy who played Bane.
Yeah.
So, all right, number 5. And this is interesting. It was only available for 2 weeks, but Super Smash Bros. Ultimate was number 5. That's huge. Number 4, Madden NFL 19. Surprised to see it, but less surprising to see number 3, NBA 2K19. I believe that had LeBron James. Depending on where you live in the country, you either love him or you hate him right now until he settles down. So that's LeBron James. Number 2, now this is interesting. This has not happened in a long time. Number 2 was Call of Duty Black Ops 4. Now, Call of Duty games are usually the best-selling game of the year. They've been this way for over a decade. Little surprised to see the number 1 game of the year, the number 1 best-selling game of the year was actually Red Dead Redemption 2. And, I mean, when I say surprised, I knew it was going to be a hit. But it wasn't received as well as people thought it would be received. The first game, they lauded over. This one, there's been some criticism. Some people say it's too slow. They say it's too boring. I don't like the word slow and boring because I find a lot of things slow and boring that I love. But have you played the game?
I have seen enough gameplay to say that I know what it's about, and I got to say that I'm surprised, but at the same time, I think that it was the right time to launch the game. I'm not saying that the game would be the number 1 game any year it was released. I'm saying that this year was a good one because, just like you said, Call of Duty, it's a first-person shooter, online multiplayer. Campaign is negligible in those games. It's all about the online multiplayer kind of thing.
Oh, no, campaign was cut out of Call of Duty Black Ops 4. They left it out this year.
Well, good, because that was just a waste of time. And I gotta say,
you are so wrong.
I know. Some people liked it, but I just went straight to the online. But I gotta say that Red Dead Redemption 2 was a return to the single player, and although yes, they do have an online component, but return to the single player story driven game that was missing for the past couple of years. I'm saying that Red Dead Redemption 2 came out at the right time for the kind of game that it is, because there was a hunger for that kind of game.
And to be fair, 8-year gap between the 2 games, between the first and the second. And I'll say this, when we see that M rating on games for mature, what that typically means is blood and boobs and sex and outrageous antics, but it doesn't usually mean mature, like the way an R-rated movie might be mature. Blockbuster video games are not used to having mature storylines that don't involve superheroes or gods or mecha robots, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or tightly dressed coquettes. Red Dead Redemption 2 is realistic, and it's grounded in realism. And frankly, the fact that it's done so well, I think that's very important, and I think hopefully that resonates. I doubt it will, but hopefully it will.
And hey, who knows? It might just. But at the same time, I did want to, kind of go back and touch on. For some reason, I felt like Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, but that was released in 2017.
Now, I will say this though.
Yeah.
Because the Switch has been such a major seller, because Smash Brothers helped do it. Now, the Switch had a pretty good last year, but the Switch has been so successful that a lot of big games for the Switch last year, like Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey, were also bestsellers this year, and they also made the top 20.
Yeah, it's
Super Mario Odyssey was 15, and Zelda Breath of the Wild was 18.
And I think Pikachu, there was a Pikachu on there, right? Or Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu is 20. Yeah.
Let's Go Pikachu. Now, I will say this. There's actually 2 Pokemon games. There's Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, Pokemon Let's Go Eevee.
Yeah.
They are counted as separate games, and they've both been blockbusters. And it was just a very good year for Nintendo. In fact, Nintendo ended up, the Switch was the best-selling console of the year. The Switch was the most money-making console of the year. Nintendo was the top publisher of the year. 7 out of the top 20 games were all Nintendo exclusive. That's never happened before with anybody. And for the first time since 2009, Nintendo was the leader of the industry unequivocally. And I want to be clear, all this from a system that isn't a tenth of as powerful as the competition. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and if you're listening, Sony, and if you're listening, Microsoft, listen to me. You can have these big, powerful, bad boy consoles without games on them. They won't make you any money. Nintendo's hardware is less powerful than an iPhone, and they spanked you. This is what happens when you have big games that people want. Now, not saying Call of Duty, not saying all that's not a good game, but you don't need to sell people $600 consoles to play them. You don't need this.
I'll be honest with you. I recently, kind of hand me down my Xbox One because it was sitting here gathering dust, and I thought it'd be better in someone else's hands who actually touched it. And I that came out perfectly. But I will say that I have kind of put off getting the Xbox One X, which I was planning to upgrade, because honestly, I'm waiting for Halo. Halo is like kind of that game for me. I'm sure
Do you
that
have
there
a
are
Windows
other.
PC?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Then you can play the next Halo. You don't need an Xbox to play it.
Yeah, but then I need an Xbox Elite controller so that I can hook it up.
No,
I'm a controller
you
player.
don't. You literally can use an Xbox One controller on your Windows PC. In fact, if you get Game Pass, which is a real deal breaker, if you get a Game Pass on your Windows 10 PC, you can get Halo Infinite the day it comes out, and you don't have to pay any extra for it. And it will be 4K and 60 frames a second on your Windows PC. It will be better on your PC than it will be on your Xbox One X. You literally have no reason to get an Xbox One X if you don't have one. That's the problem.
Microsoft. Nathan just talked you out of a sale. I don't know what to do. But it's just, again,
I've told them this. I've talked to Microsoft before, and I've told them this, and they know it too. Look, by the way, when I'm done with you, I'm going to hook up my Xbox One X because I do have one, and I'm going to go play Resident Evil 2, the remake that came out today.
Yeah.
I like the game. Could I get it on the PC? Yeah, but guess what? I can't rent it on the PC.
Right.
So there you go.
Okay.
But no, it's video games. I'll just say this: this was a great year for every single company. Every company had a great year this year, and that's pretty good. That's a nice change of pace.
Yep, and definitely, and by the way, the article that you kind of linked to here from Forbes as well, also mentioned Fortnite. We didn't say anything about that, but Fortnite has continued to dominate. And although I'm sensing a bit of, and again, this is just a gut check from me, but Fortnite is definitely saying that Fortnite has done everything and more than I've ever expected a game studio to do to keep a game fresh. But at the same time, no game lasts forever, and it's kind of falling into that kind of it's there and I'll play it, but it's we're starting to look for something else to play. So
I'll say this about Fortnite. Fortnite is what's called an ancillary game, where you go to Walmart right now, you can see Fortnite available to buy on the Switch.
The free-to-play game, right?
Yeah, free-to-play game, because it gives you some bonus thing. But the fact of the matter is, Fortnite's success is basically partly due to crossover from Minecraft. There's a lot of interplay between the Minecraft crowd and the Fortnite crowd.
Minecraft is still the most played game.
And
Fun
here's
story.
the thing, though. It's making scads of money. It's making scads of money, not just for Epic Games, but Astro Games, Turtle Beach, the headsets, game controllers, all this stuff. It's making money from the peripheral. And I got to tell you, it's not going to last forever. But you know what? People said that about Pokemon.
And luckily, Pokemon's so ongoing because I definitely like Pokemon. And honestly, I like Fortnite too. It's just, I don't know.
One little piece of trivia. So Fortnite is the most played. You ready for this? On the Switch.
Really? Huh. Didn't see that coming. Okay.
It's a good match. So.
Well, there you go. So, and that might have something to do with the fact that other than maybe Super Smash Brothers or whatever it was, like other than that, I guess there's like a finite amount of time that you can spend in like Zelda Breath of the Wild, whereas Fortnite, you play with your friends and you play over and over and over again. But I digress. Let's talk about this last one, like 2 minutes, Hangouts, just to get it out there. And I was kind of perusing the article. It looks like they had like a previous Hangouts that was also integrated if anyone out there uses
Google.
Gmail.
Look, Google, Google is the company that proves the old adage, they can snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Google, how many times have we said this on the show? Google starts a project, they quit it. Google starts a software, they end it. Google. I used Hangouts. I met you on Hangouts. We did this show on Hangouts. Mm-hmm. You don't use Hangouts anymore.
I do.
And so
I do, but it's because of its integration with Google Voice. That's about it.
But you know what I mean? But what I mean is that Google just can't leave well enough alone. They can't just make something and nurture it. They got to discontinue it. They got to have how many apps do they have now? 5 chatting apps? It's like they have Allo, they have all this stuff. They have a new Google Hangouts. I got to tell you, it's just so hard. It's so hard to keep up with all their abandoned projects. Like, they're the world's worst deadbeat dad. They just keep abandoning their children all over the place.
I don't know. I think I think my deadbeat dad could probably give people a run for their money. Not talking about Craig.
You have a cool dad.
Craig's very cool, but I will say music playing in the background. And by the way, folks, if you want a fun little story here, you can go ahead and check out the list of Google services, and you'll find 131 different services that they provide. You did not know that because Google has a lot of different projects. In the meantime, Nathan, I'll let you have the last word. If people want to find out more, where can they go?
Popzara.com. We got a bunch of cool podcasts this week. We even got a new podcast with Corey and new guy James about the best games of 2018. Go watch it. Go listen. Sorry, listen.
There you go. And definitely do that. And I'm sure it's available on wherever podcasts are heard as well, just like Computer America. And in the meantime, everyone, thank you for listening. And of course, Nathan, thank you for joining us on Friday. Always a good way to kick off the weekend. You have a good weekend. All the listeners out there, have a great weekend. Computer America will be back on Monday. Let me check the calendar real quick, give a little tease. And yeah, looks like Sandy Berger, our consumer electronics expert, will be on. This will be her first time since CES, so we'll see if anything really stood out to her. In the meantime, everyone, have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.